Hello, everybody. Welcome to Small Market REI Podcast. This is episode number 8, and we're going to talk about the flip process. My name is David Dean. They call me Coach, and my co-host is Travis Goodwin. And what we're going to talk about is what the process is for flipping a property. Kind of, it's not 100%. We won't have everything, every little detail because every property is different. Every property needs different things. But I'm just going to basically give you a little bit of a checklist that I use as I move through a flip property and try to make sure that I have uh, everything covered. And as good a job as you do, if you're doing a big flip and it's a total rehab, you'll still miss little details here and there, or you'll get stuff out of order, or different things. And contractors have different schedules, and you have to work around this and that, and you can't get equipment, or you can't get a piece of something in. So there's a lot of different things that kind of mess up your perfect schedule. And I'm one of those guys that I got to have the schedule and the outline and everybody in the schedule, and then I just have to deal with it, after I get into it. But the first thing we're going to kind of go from, really from the time that you purchase a flip forward. And we're going to assume that you already have your financing in place. We're going to assume, that all that's set up. But the first thing that you need before you close is insurance. So, very important. If you're going to do a full scale flip, I mean, you're going to need a builder's risk policy. And I usually carry a separate liability policy on the property right from the beginning. And then, from there, we got our insurance in place. And the next thing would be your utilities. So we got to start with that. And, in West Virginia, we got Mountain Air Gas, we got American Electric Power, and then we have our water, sewer. And here we have West Virginia American Water, we have public service districts in different areas and different sewer companies. So sometimes it can be a bit of a mystery as to who the water company is and who the sewer company is. Sometimes we have septics, it's just a host of different things. Sometimes we're in HOAs, different things like that. So make sure that if you buy a property in an HOA, that you get in contact with them early on, because the first thing you want to do is kind of keep the HOA on your side and let them know that you're there to work with them and pay the fees. And we recently bought a property that they bill yearly, and I could have wanted them to kind of prorate it, month by month, because we're going to own it for the whole year, but I paid the whole year up. That way the next buyer that comes in on the property will be good. Um, then probably after you switch your utilities, another thing you need to start, if you don't have access to the property. Now we recommend you get access before closing, but sometimes you won't get access. Sometimes people are just moving stuff out. You have to come up with your scope of work, what you're going to do with the property. Does it need a roof? Does it need windows? Does it need HVAC? Does it need structural work? Does it need decks? Does it need French doors, sliding doors? There's all kinds of stuff like that. What are we going to do inside? We're going to redo the bathroom, put in a walk-in shower. We're going to, what color are we going to use? And so that kind of creates your scope of work. And then from your scope of work what you're going to need. I'm going to need an electrician. I'm going to need just a general contractor, plumber. If I'm going to use painters, if I'm going to use, you know, um, flooring company, all markets are different. Here, we usually use a general contractor, and we put down luxury vinyl plank, and then I have a flooring company come in and put down carpet. Uh, in bedrooms and stuff. I tend to do bedrooms and carpet in most of our flips. Um, the next thing is, I guess, access. I always like to put trail cameras out, or lock boxes. I like to put lock box on the door. That way everybody has good access. I change the locks first of all on the property. Then I put my lock box on. Then I put out trail cameras. And people say, well, what do you mean trail cameras? Well, I use like the reveal trail cameras. We use them for hunting. I like to put those out on my property. I put maybe one in the front, one in the back. Um, and I put them on cell service. So I be a couple cameras is $15 a month, and I get plenty of pictures, and I set them up, and that way they're sitting there all the time taking pictures, watching what's happening around the property. And it's also a good thing for me to know who's at the property. Like if I got somebody that's going to deliver something, I say, "What is my contractor up there today?" Yeah, I've seen a picture of him coming in earlier, so I know he's there. Or he's not there right now. Went out to lunch, or so it kind of gives me a running order of who's at my property at any given time. It also acts as security. Travis and I had a house in Charleston where um, we had two different break-ins, and well, thefts around the property. They didn't break into property, and my good old trusty trail cameras caught both of them. So we got both people, had great pictures. One of them stole an air conditioning unit off of us and was prosecuted from basically the trail camera. And then another guy, we had two trail cameras, one on the back gate, back fence, and one on the side porch. So the guy comes in, walks by the first camera, don't see it, goes up on our porch and steals the other camera. And I caught him so quick with the cell camera that the cops caught him walking down the street with my camera in his hand. So I got the camera back, and the cops dropped it back off at a neighbor's house, and I went and picked it up that evening and put it back up. So I can't say enough about when you're doing flips in most areas, um, try to have some security. And the trail cameras are my solution. There's a lot of other stuff, but I like the trail cameras, and they work well. They're easy. Batteries last a long time. You can do the battery packs, the lithium battery packs, and they'll last, several months on a property. So just a little tip there, a little pro tip I've learned through the years. Um, then you go into your ordering. Now I'm a Lowe's guy. I deal with Lowe's contractor sales. I'm very happy with Lowe's and our local contractor sales crew, and so I do my orders via email using item numbers and stuff like that, and I deal with a couple particular people in contractor sales that works up my orders, schedules deliveries. Stuff is wrong, that's who I deal with to get it back to them. So I can't stress enough, if you're going to be in the business, you need to get hooked up either Lowe's, Home Depot, or a building store. I mean, we have Builders First Source and a lot of different, independent businesses around here that I deal with as well. 84 Lumber. Sometimes I'll buy lumber, decking materials and stuff, shingles through 84 Lumber. So, you know, uh, if you're going to be in this business, you really need to have a relationship with a lot of different people. 84 Lumber, I found, is a good place to buy doors. They have a lot of doors in stock that other places don't. So if I need a 36 or 32-inch right-hand hung 6-panel door. Sometimes I can't find it at Lowe's, or if I need a 32 or I need a 30, something that's a little bit, I can find those in stock at 84 and save a little bit of time. And 84 recently ordered me it was a 32-inch insulated steel door going from the garage into the house. It's kind of an odd size, hard to find. Called 84, they ordered it, got it in. So I don't know if you may not have those in your part of the country, but we have one of those here. We have several, and I use them quite a bit. Then once we start that, we get our orders through contractor sales, and then we start managing our subs if we're using a roofing contractor. And what I tell everybody is, if you're doing a flip, it don't have to be rocket science. Start from the top down. Okay. If you don't have a good roof, nothing else needs to happen but the roof. That's where we start. Let's get the place dry. Okay. Once we get it dry, then we can start to repair everything underneath it. But we got to have a dry house. So I start with the roof, make sure it's all right. Put a new roof on, whatever we're doing. Then I usually work my way down to windows. Are the windows good? Am I keeping them? Am I replacing a few? Maybe that's cracked, or sometimes people hit them with weed eater, throwing rocks and stuff, and you got a couple cracked windows. That's the case. Am I just replacing the glass? Like, yeah, I do that a lot. As I will use a glass company, come in and put new double panes in windows if the windows are, and under 10, 20, 15 years old. It's good windows. We just need to replace a few of them. Then we work our way down to electrical. Is our service good outside? Do we need a new electrical drop coming in? Do we need electrical work in the house? Does it need a new breaker box? Does it need, what does that consist of? Then I usually move to plumbing. How are we in plumbing? Everything looks good. We're going to switch out maybe an old standpipe from, uh, you know, the old black iron pipe to, PVC. We're going to put PEX in the house. We're going to put a PEX panel. What are we doing there? And then from there we go to HVAC. You know, how's our heating and cooling? Are we good? This house that we're working on now had a 6-year-old um, train uh, forced air electric furnace, which was great. It's a quality product, high-end product. Kept that, but the outside unit, a tree had fallen and hit the outside unit, knocked it over during a storm, and so the outside unit needed replaced. It was 50 some $100. Of course, called the same company that installed the system originally and put a matching unit on the outside, and we should be good. So HVAC is very important. And one common thing to remember about HVAC, I see a lot of guys make this mistake is they don't approach the HVAC, the heating and cooling in a house early on, particularly in the winter months and particularly in the summer months. But you got to have that HVAC working, because if you're going to go in there and you're going to try to do drywall, you're going to try to do paint. If you don't have ventilation and you don't have no air circulating, that drywall will not dry. It just makes for a terrible job. Everything looks bad. So you got to have air circulating uh, for the paint to look right. In the summer, it gets so hot, so that's very important. And so I always suggest early on you check out your HVAC and you make sure that everything is working the way it should. And that'll save you a lot of problems, down the road. Um, then inside, we work from the top down. I work from the ceiling down. Okay, if we had a bad roof, did we have some leaks? We got drywall that's stained, water stained, maybe that's fallen out, whatever. We start from there down. We replace whatever we need to replace. If we have to put new ceilings in the bedrooms or, wherever the case might be, we work from there down. Okay, so we replace that drywall. We work down, repair any walls, anything we're going to take out, anything we're going to replace. We're going to take out paneling. We're going to put in some new drywall. Um, and then, we work our way down from there. So it's basically a top down scenario. So if you're a new flipper, just remember that. Just work top down. Roof down is the way it works. So roof down your major systems, and then ceiling down inside the house. And if you kind of stay on that schedule, and you work through those things, it'll keep you kind of where you need to be, at all times. Then, we work into the bedroom or to the bathrooms and kitchens. We're going to put a shower, we're going to put a tile surround, so we're going to put go board up, we're going to put, concrete board, whatever. Some contractors prefer one or the other. What kind of tile, what color, so there's a lot of decisions to be made. What I try to do is use pretty much a standard. I try to use the same tiles, the same mortar, uh, the same style, the same colors. And I got a couple different, maybe 2 or 3 different color flips. I do the gray one, the beige one, the white one, and so I replicate that over and over and over. Now, some houses might not be full flips and we do something a little bit different, but most of the time they stay about the same color wheel all the time. And, I've heard a lot of people say, I don't know why you guys do that. You should, do this and do that. And I've seen this color on HGTV. Well, that's great. But when you're buying the same materials, I buy the same trim, I buy the same baseboard, I buy the same doors, I buy the same, because inevitably you have stuff left over from every flip. So if I'm using the same stuff, I can move it from this one over to that one. Like I've got about to get her, I buy all my paint through Sherwin-Williams. So that's another thing as a flipper. Work with Sherwin-Williams, get with a commercial sales rep. They can save you. Sherwin-Williams, in my opinion, is the best paint out there. And they can save you a ton of money and sell it to you cheaper than you can buy it at Lowe's and Home Depot or some of your big box retailers. They have a big box program, is what they call it. You can get on that program and you can get some really great buys. And so I had to buy a little extra paint. They had a deal running at the end of the year that you had to buy 60 gallons of paint, and you got just 50 or 60, I don't know, and you got this huge discount, even more than what so I bought extra paint, because I was doing an order for the house I was doing, but it was more than what I needed. But So I got about 10, 15 gallon extra paint. But I'm just going to move it to the next flip and we'll use it on that one. So, it stays right in our color wheel. So I use the same lights. I do all LED lights in the house. Throughout the house, we do a lot of recess lights, a lot of wafer recess lights. It's LED. Those are easy to put in. They're very economical, very efficient, and it makes for a quality, good looking product in a house. So use 6 panel doors. Sometimes we paint them white. Sometimes we paint them black. Um, I got the black color scheme from a local flipping company here. I always like the way they look. So a lot of them will do gray walls, we'll do black doors with white trim. Makes a really nice product with brushed nickel accents and handles and stuff like that. Then usually once we've got the first coat of paint on, um, and we've got our drywall done, we'll put our flooring down, and it's usually we use a Smart Core product from Lowe's. It's a luxury vinyl plank. My general contractor puts that down, makes a good looking job, waterproof. I mean, and um, I like that stuff a lot. So we usually do that in most of all the water areas and kitchens and lots of times in family rooms and stuff like that. And we usually use carpet in bedrooms and steps and so forth. Um, Now, then we look at that point, we're looking at outlets and switches. We're doing a house now. I know the other day I bought 61 outlets, 33 switches, and 12 three-way switches. So, and then we get those installed, then we go back and we match all the cover plates. And then, stuff like HVAC registers, return air registers. Everybody says, "Oh, you can save those, you can paint those." But hey, if you're going to put in you're doing a nice flip, go buy some new stuff, and don't shortcut on low ticket items like that. So I always go try to buy everything brand new, nice, crisp, clean. Everything looks good. It's uniform. Another real important part of a flip, and it's probably the most important thing I'm going to tell you, excuse me, as a new flipper, I call it garbage management. You got to manage the garbage. My gosh, you don't think nothing about it as a new flipper starting out, but man, garbage will absolutely crush you on a flip because by the amount of material that you have to take out of a flip. So the flip I'm doing right now, we used a 30-yard dumpster. That's the biggest we could get to the property. Of course, it was in a HOA, and I had to set it kind of on the street. And of course, you know, you went over. You can imagine anybody's flipped in subdivisions with HOAs, how well the neighbors received the 30-yard dumpster sitting in the street. But you know, it's what we had to do. We took the heat for it, and it was only it was only going to be there for a week, and then we had like huge snow that turns to ice and then snow again. And then, so the dumpster sat out there full of garbage like for almost 3 weeks until it was on a hill. So the dumpster company couldn't get to the dumpster to get it out of there. So we had to I had to take the heat on that one, a little bit. But anyway, so we got out there and that it wound up being almost 5 ton of debris that we took out of the house and stuff that we tore out and stuff that was left in the house and I now had them a lot more than that. So it's big. And then once you get the chunk of it out, and then it's all the other stuff that you take out and all the drywall that you may tear out or all this and flooring and I mean just stuff that you don't even think of as you're just going along. Boxes of all the stuff that comes in, you got to get rid of all of that. And man, it just piles up like crazy. So your garbage management is so important. And it's important to keep the neighbors happy because the neighbors don't want to see all that garbage piled all around your property. The neighbors don't want that stuff because inevitably when you put that stuff outside, it's been beautiful weather, but just as soon as you put some stuff outside, there's going to be 40-mile-an-hour winds with a storm coming up. And it's going to spread that stuff all over the place. And so, you're going to have problems. And I don't blame the neighbors. I wouldn't want that stuff next door to me either, blowing all over the place. So manage your garbage, have some guys. Some people have dump trailers. I use a couple different companies and they're usually really good to respond to me, and they'll get out there quick with a dump trailer, or they'll haul it in big vans, big cargo vans, or they'll do something and they'll get the debris out of there. Particularly if I'm putting it outside on a porch or something like that, I don't have a garage to put it in, you know, and your contractor really gets fouled up inside the house if you can't get that garbage out of there and get it moved. And because I'm one of those guys, I won't deal with contractors that keep a dirty job site. A lot of contractors will pile it up, walk over it, walk through it, and I just don't like that. I mean, I like for the place to look good, even during demo. Once we get it out, everything's broom clean. It's neat, and that shows pride in people's work. So, you know, um, that's probably one of the biggest schedulers that I deal with, is trying to make sure the garbage is gone. You know, we got, contractor, we got another load of garbage. We got another load of garbage. We got to get out of here. Got to get out of here. So, you know, that's that's really important. Another thing is the staging of materials. You got to order your materials in order, okay, as you're moving, and you got to make sure it's delivered and get it into the property and it's being used. And then the next, because it's hard to make those huge orders at one time and get it all on site, because you get to the point where you can't work in the property because you got all this stuff. So it requires, if you're managing the projects, which is what I do, it requires lots of different orders during the course of the project to make sure that you keep material on site and you don't bog yourself down with, with all this stuff. Um, Another thing you got to consider too, what time of the year is it? If it's summer, spring, fall, you got grass. So I always keep a couple different grass companies. They do a lot of my stuff. They'll come in and keep your grass cut. You don't want to be in nice neighborhoods and, your grass be knee high. People are not going to respond to that. It's going to be a problem. So, what you want to do is you want to go into neighborhoods and you want to be an asset to the neighborhood or the HOA. You want to tell them, hey, we're going to make this property one of the nicest properties in the neighborhood. We're going to keep a nice, clean job site. We're not going to have garbage spread all over the place. Our grass is going to be cut. We're going to trim trees. We're going to cut trees down that needs to cut down. And it's going to be right. And then people will see that you have good intention and you're trying, you're keeping your place in better shape than they're keeping theirs. So, that keeps people on your side. And I also, another important thing about flips is, and this ain't in books, and you're not going to get this kind of information from systems, let's say, but go talk to the neighbors. I know it's, some people don't like to talk, to people, but you need to go see the neighbors. Go talk to them, tell them what you're doing, talk to them about how long you've been in the business, and I go talk to them and I tell them I've been flipping property since 1999. I've been around, we're going to do it right. There's not going to be problems. If your guys are parking in the street, sometimes at the flip properties, you got two or three different companies at the same time on property. So you may have big trucks, you may have a dumpster, you may have a tree company cutting trees out front, and you got Lowe's will inevitably show up at the wrong time with a big load of material. So you've got the entire neighborhood blocked up. So that's the kind of time that you hope that you built some goodwill with your neighbors and you've talked to the neighbors and stuff, and let them know, hey, there may be a little inconvenience. We're trying to schedule, and we apologize for the trucks in the road, but we're moving fast on the property. And if you can work with us in 30 to 60 days, we'll be out of your hair and we'll have this place looking the way it should, and you shouldn't have any more problems out of us. And then I always tell them, I say, hey, if there's anything we can do for you while we're up here, if you need an accommodation from us, if I've got a dumpster setting and I talk to the neighbors, I say, hey, if you need to put some stuff in a dumpster, go ahead and put it in there. Uh, and on the flip side, I put dumpsters in neighborhoods, and of course, everybody from miles around puts fills my dumpster up and I pay for that too. So, but I always try to do those accommodations. And, people say, well, you're going to cut those trees. Who are you using to cut the trees? And I said, well, I use this guy. He's a great guy. You want me to have him come over and talk to you when he comes up to do my stuff? And maybe you can hire him to do some of your stuff. You can watch him. So, do some stuff like that and help people. I've even went as far as had my guys that work for me go and fix fences that were broken and not from anything we had done, just try to help. They got a water leak inside. I've sent my contractor in to fix stuff just to create some goodwill and let people know that we're not all about coming in there and trying to snatch up all the money we can and leave real fast. I mean, we want to know we're trying to build a quality product and put a good family or something into the neighborhood and usually fix up one of the worst properties in the neighborhood. And most neighbors would see that property maybe as a problem property. And I tell them, once we're done with it, it's not going to be a problem property. It's going to be a trophy property for somebody, and it'll make you guys proud, and it'll definitely help the value in your neighborhood. So that's just a pro tip from years of experience. Nothing beats shaking somebody's hand and telling them what you're going to do, and then whatever you told them you was going to do, by golly, you better do it. Don't tell people you're going to do something and don't do it. So that's why I built my business is, I try to do what I say and I'll die trying to do what I say. And, I don't know that I've been 100% in my lifetime, but I'm pretty close. You know, sometimes there's unforeseen circumstances, but you just tell people, you know, so always try to do what you say. I mean, in this business, you're only as good as your word, and that's what you got to do. And that's what I've always tried to do in the business. And let me see. I'm trying to think. Oh, also, back to the lockbox access. We use Lowe's a lot. And one thing I do with Lowe's, I tell the guys at contractor sales, hey, I got a lockbox on. I give you the code when the Lowe's guys deliver because sometimes, they don't deliver 8 till 4. They tell you that they'll be there or somebody, but they'll show up at 6:30 at night with a load of material. Well, there's nobody there. We don't live there. There's nobody. Contractor's gone. Everybody's gone. So if you develop a good relationship with Lowe's and their delivery people, I will give them our lockbox code. They'll go in, open the garage door, do what, and they'll put the material on site, drop it off, close it back. I trust them to lock it back. That's where the trail cameras come back in. Okay. I always got the trail camera where it can see the front door, see the lockbox, see the front of the house. And I know when the guys are there unloading, I know when they leave. So that's another benefit from using that trail camera. So anyway, I know I've rambled on here for quite a while about about the flip process. I could probably spend another hour talking about it. And I know I've left out some stuff. I scribbled down some notes real quick, but that's just a brief overview of uh, what a flip property looks like. So it's less about picking out pretty stuff, maybe sometimes that you see. You might get a wrong impression sometimes when you watch a TV show, and it's more about management. It's more about personnel, contractor management, people management, garbage management, material management. It's all management more than anything else. Making sure everything's on site, making sure everything's done, all the boxes are checked, insurance in place, you know, bills are paid. And, that in of itself is time consuming getting the bills paid. And what's even more time consuming for guys like me is trying to switch over power, gas, water, sewer. Oh my goodness. So that tends to be an arduous process switching utilities but anyway, that's that. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Travis. Travis, tell us about what you look for when Travis is usually out here on the street. He's running leads. He's looking at properties, and he's kind of picking out. He kind of knows what I like and what kind of properties I like and where I like to do stuff at. And so, just tell us what you're looking for out here every day when you're out looking at properties.
Awesome, man. I'll tell you what, that was a lot of information that you just gave. I learned a lot myself, and you had there's a lot of important factors, that most people don't think about. So anybody watching this, I would advise you to rewind and watch a few times, take notes, write down what David's saying if you're really interested in becoming a flipper, because like he said, it's more about management and making sure all of those things are in place so your deal doesn't fall apart. Because I have wit I have witnessed a lot of guys get into this business, in the flip business, and they don't make it long because of lack of management, not handling supplies, and all it takes is one bad deal and you're out of the business. I mean, you're done, for most people. But yeah, so when I'm out here looking for flips, I'm looking, I don't want to do anything in a bad area. I mean, you can go out and be the guy who fixes up these neighborhoods, that's awesome. But when you're really getting started, you don't want to focus on bad areas. You want to focus on good school districts, close to shopping and close to where people can eat. Those are like in our local area, Putnam County is really, really popular. Winfield, Hurricane. Great school. So everybody wants to live there. So if you can find a good flip in the city of Hurricane, you might have to deal with the city a little bit more and things like that. But you got a good flip if the numbers are right. You want to focus, I believe, on definitely when you're just getting started. Everybody thinks flipping a house, you have to go find the worst house that needs gutted and you got to do from top to bottom. But I'd say when you're first getting started, you want to focus more on light rehabs, maybe just cosmetic stuff if you can find that. That way, because David can tell you, a full flip job could take months. If you're just getting started, that you could burn out really fast on a job like that. I couldn't tell you how many times I've got somebody to call my cell phone or my business phone and say, we started this flip, we ran out of money, and now we just need to sell it. That's actually a pretty common lead for us.
We bought a lot like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, just make sure you're not biting off more than you can chew. Um, if you're just getting started, don't necessarily do business with a friend that's a contractor. Get multiple bids, hear different people out. It's usually your friend that's the contractor that's going to do you the worst, and then you're going to be in that scenario that we just said, and you're going to be trying to sell it. But yeah, I like good school districts. That's where I like to look for flips. I like to look for the neighborhoods where you are the ugliest house. There's not three other ugly houses beside you, people breaking into them. You want the neighborhoods where you got to slow down because the kids are on their bikes and passing footballs. That's the type of areas that I think you should focus on. Um, let's see, maybe don't go for the large houses at first. If it's 2,000 square feet above, that's a lot of house. That's a lot of square footage you got to touch. And if you're just getting started, that's a lot more room for mess ups. I like one story if possible. If it's got a basement, that's a lot more you got to look after. So maybe, you could get started just for looking for a smaller house. Maybe I think David, what your favorite's like what 14, 1,500 square feet?
Yeah, 15, 1,600 square foot ranchers. Those are, you know, they appeal to everybody, all demographics, and they're one floor plan. I don't particularly like basements, as you well know. Basements tend to be where all the bugaboos live is in the basement structurally, water, all that stuff. So in this area, we have a lot of that. We have a lot of, we're sandstone material, rock, have a lot of water, a lot of steep terrain. So, that just lends itself to a lot of problems when you do have basements and you find a lot of structural and, a lot of things like that. So, but yeah, those ranchers are my favorite for sure.
Yeah, yeah, like he just said, I feel like if you're just getting started, you want to stay away from any. If you see a bunch of cracks, um, you get it structurally inspected. Get somebody to look at that foundation because those cracks can be expensive. They'll blow your whole budget if you don't know what you're doing. You got to account for every single thing that could go wrong. Make sure you're running your numbers so tight that if you mess up, there's still room for profit. Because the last thing you want to do is owe a bunch of money to a lender. The lender is begging for the money. The house isn't selling on the market. You didn't do your numbers right, so now you got to put more money into it, and you're just in a scenario you don't want to be in.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, anytime I've ever done stuff like that is I've basically been hungry to make a deal, trying to make a deal, trying to make a deal work, and that's that's where you get yourself in a situation where you finish a deal, not make any money, or maybe even lose a few thousand, lose some money, and once again, nobody talks about those deals, but on this podcast, we're going to talk about those deals because there's a lot more education in the losses than the gains, and even as long as I've been doing it. I still will do a deal here or there and get into something that was unexpected and break even or make a few $1,000s or lose some money, lose four, five, $6,000, maybe more. So it does happen. Even with the most veteran of investors, you can still get yourself in a situation and not see something on a house or whatever, and you know, and it's not a reason to quit. It just next time you start from experience, not from scratch. Now you learned what it was all about, and we learn every day in this business about stuff. So just don't let that stuff discourage you. But we hope we hope you gain some knowledge and some value from this podcast. We want to remind you we're not selling you anything. We ain't got no course to sell you. We're not selling you an ebook. We're not asking for anything. We're just out here giving you as much content as humanly possible. So if you get some value, subscribe to our channel. That really helps us. Share, share our podcast with people. If you got a real estate group somewhere, REI group somewhere, share our podcast. Share our clips if you see them on social media a little bit. That really helps us out because we're just trying to bring you small market, small town USA flipping, and we think it's a demographic, a niche market that nobody's really filling right now, and we're going to try to fill that market and try to help people from the smaller markets all across the country. And what we call a smaller market is under 300,000 people total in your market area, we work about 3 counties, maybe 4 counties. And so that's we're a little under 250,000 people in the market that we work here around Charleston, West Virginia. So, and the market I came from was about 120,000 people. So I worked even, in an even smaller market for years. So anyway, on behalf of my co-host Travis Goodwin, I'm David Dean. They call me Coach. We thank you for watching.